Okay, and here is a last project. Last video, I think, for this whole thing. What I want to talk about is, and this is probably a minor part of this, but it's a skill that you might be interested in. At least some students have said so. Screen scraping. You can't always get the data you need. One of these has what I want. Here. Sometimes you can't get the data you need from a file or to download it. Sometimes you need to go out and get it. Let me tell you an example. If I wanted to track the price of jet fuel, here's a site that does it every day. I can't figure out, I have an account with them. I can't figure out how to download this because I thought about making this a variable. Maybe people fly to different places, not in the fake world, but in the real world. And so this is something that updates every business day. And they even talk about how they come about it. And it's a partnership with the IATA, the International Aviation, something or another. So this looks like it's some data I could find. So I'll tell you another little trick. Inspect. Because what this will do is tell you, okay, and this is more for web developers, so CIS students should probably pay attention, but if you don't have any background. So look at this. Filterable list. So this whole thing comes in as a filterable list. So presumably then, if I went to sources here, it's not really an HTML file I can get. But if I go back to this element, and you can see that every time I scroll around in here, so that filterable list simple 6 seems to be the thing that I want. And it shows you all across here. It's got a list row. So presumably, if I were scraping, I'd be able to ultimately find this little piece of data. And then there's that value. And that little span there has the actual data I'd want. So, of course, you could just right-click on this, copy, drop into some type of spreadsheet. But if you wanted to pick this up intelligently, your job is, hopefully you're seeing the connection to what I'm talking about. You've got to go down and literally dig it out of the web page. But that's real data that I could use. And how hard is it to get this web page? Well, they won't show you this unless you have an account. And if you hammer away at this script-wise, eventually I think they'll catch you and lock you out. But, you know, there are other things. So finance.google.com. You know, how's the market doing? Same deal. Inspect. And they're all buried down under what to most of you, if you don't have any background, probably looks like a lot of gobbledygook. But eventually, the data you need is buried way down there. And they actually, you see that crazy name there? They've done that. So it's almost impossible to reliably scrape this. Because I can promise you that these values probably change all the time. So scraping, Google's on to you. Let's try to go to Google Nope, not Google. Let's try to go to Yahoo Stocks, which is at the end of the day why you just end up using APIs. So they kind of maybe have some stock information on the side, but do you see how even these haven't filled in completely? They're all going to come from some kind of source. So even if I inspect this, yeah, see that TRDSU? So everybody's doing this now. It's not impossible, but very difficult to scrape this. If we went to, let's get weather data, the Weather Underground might be decent. And if we said Amarillo, Amarillo, Cuba, interesting, didn't know. And we'll just say, it looks like they want us to, make some decisions, and it's all very difficult. But here's some stuff, right? Let's actually go back to a month where stuff has already happened, like March. So even if you can see how friendly this URL is, where you can actually dig down. In fact, so much so, let's try it. DFW. Boom, right? So that's kind of connected to the last thing we made. So it's kind of scriptable. Oh, look at that. You have no history, huh? Let's how about... So it's not that scriptable. ATL. Look, okay, finally. So here. This is the type of thing you could probably scrape pretty well. And I'll bet you I'm starting to suspect this does not have too much craziness. Yeah, that's not that bad. You see how it's called, like row city history. Here we have a particular row. We have something called NG content C8. So you could probably reverse engineer this pretty well. Here, this city history, you could probably find the city history and logically get, used to scripting way down into these. So this is another key way to get data from the web. So let me get to the punchline. So I do this. I scrape this page because this page has tables, kinda. See, it says new product image, new product page. So they've given me clues so that I can actually dig down in there and find this over and over again. Now, if they ever change this structure, I'm out of luck. You'd have to change your script. But I just so happen to have a script that picks this stuff apart. So I have something called a scraper. And I put it inside this object called SimMarket P3DV4 scenery parser, and I parse them and I print them, and then that's all this program does. But it does a couple of interesting things, and I give you some resources of how you would put this together. But we use this package called Beautiful Soup, which lets us dig down into and pick a page apart. Well, first of all, there's our good old friend requests. And the Beautiful Soup is, we walk through here and I go through each page and then see this Beautiful Soup here. If I say all the rows come from soup.select, so what this does is that puts the whole page on it, parses it down, and I say find cases where I have a div with the class name of new product name and then A for anchor tag. And I do it over here as well by parsing the sceneries out. And then I parse the product out itself. So let me try to have this maybe make a little bit more sense and speak in plain English. So what Beautiful Soup will do is if I put a whole page on it, it'll help you find patterns. And then once I find that pattern, I can pick a little bit out. So the first thing I do is say, well, find a div where new product name is a part of it. Okay. New product. Oh, sorry. New underscore product name. So look at that. Pretty reliably repeats, just like the page does. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Then pick out the part in there that has an anchor tag. So it's this. And then I actually pick out the data, and as it turns out, it's a description of the product. Then go through each one of those. And once I'm down in there, pick out the parts that are down inside of it. Now, the first thing I do is I end up picking out this product itself directly, which is what this URL is. I pick out the description of it. And for now, that's enough. But you can keep on going down and picking other parts of it. So there's a way script-wise to dig down, and if you can find patterns in here, Beautiful Soup will help you reliably pull that out of the file over and over again. So here, this is an interesting thing I do. I randomly put this script to sleep so that the web server doesn't cut me off. Although it's pretty weird that somebody's browser would come and ask for these pages one after the other within a half a second to 2.5 seconds. So if I wanted to mimic human behavior, I would leisurely pick these up across a 10-minute period. It doesn't really matter, but this isn't the first time we've had to put I've discussed having to put a script to sleep. So the only thing you have to do is take the outputs of this. You see where I print the scenery? And I have, as I usually do, a little object that holds the URL and the name of the scenery together, which is just the description of the scenery plus this link to that page. And that's all I store. That means it's all you have to store in the database. So once again, I come up with a little class to store the record. And right here where I'm printing them, you probably want to write it off to the database. And you've seen me do that. This will be the hardest part because I'm doing the least for you. The only other thing is, of course, I don't write to the database, although I talk about how I might do that, but I stopped short of doing that. So let me run this, and you'll see it inventories each of these pages. It goes to each of these product pages. You see how, page 1, page 2. What's interesting is I don't do that logically. So once these exceed a certain value, my script is actually hard-coded. So that's bad. The more and more records there becomes, the less there will be. But there's a logic. They're showing 60 at a time. So if I knew exactly how many products there were, but you can see there's a page 1, page 2, page 3, and I'm pretty sure I hard-coded out the page 12. So this is a good chance I'm not getting all of the data. Look at that. So now there's a page 13. So as this thing grows over time, I'm not getting all the data. So this is really crude. In fact, I should update my script because I want to go out to page 13. So as they get more and more products in here, this is not a particularly intelligent way. One thing I could do is read the first page and then find where it says of a certain number of products, and then do the math here real quick and figure out how many pages there would be. And if I were to improve this script, I would try to parse that out. And since I've showed you about inspect, you probably know how to go off and find it. So let's see, it's under a thing called paginate pages. Yeah. So you see, that would be pretty easy to pick apart over time because it has a reliable pattern. So I could programmatically get that string together and ultimately consume that, because there's 3 bolds within the div. So I could tell Beautiful Soup, you can see how Beautiful Soup works by this pattern here. I could tell it, find me something that has the class paginate pages, and then find me all the B's underneath it. And then I just pick out the third one, which is of such and such pages or such and such products. Since it seems to be dividing that final number by 60, then I can do the math to figure out how many pages there would be. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm just telling you out loud the mindset behind what it would take to pick this data up. And the second these guys redo their site, this script is trash. But you're counting on laziness, and I know for a fact that they haven't updated this site in decades. Not 2 decades, but over a decade. This site, so you can tell, you know, I like this flight simulation stuff. You probably can tell that by now. But it presents a decent case. So this is screen scraping. The ask is you run this script, and then you figure out, you could see that I print, all this script does is print. So as you can see, I print all of this. It's going to cause 700 records. All I do is name and URL. That's all you got to store. It's your only job. Of course, if there's a little bit of funniness here, you notice how it kind of cuts off. That's okay. So you see it's already gone to 723 sceneries, so the 60 math would work well. But anyway, your job is to take what I print and put the title of the scenery and the URL off to a database. In the future, and I'll just one last commentary, and we'll end this video. In the future, what I would do with this information is, now you know I can tell what airports people are going to. So between the names or the codes, see Kita, Kyushu, or Heraklion, I'm not sure you say that, or Tivat, or Miami. Between the name or the code, I can link these up to airports, and then I can continue this process if I wanted to with the aircraft they're flying. And I can slowly develop some intelligence about what people are doing. All right, anyway, this has been screen scraping. And this code's available to you out there as well. And the code's available to you through my GitHub repository under SimMarket Scrape. Same deal. You go and get it and download it. Okay, that'll do this for now, and I think that completes the series. I might make one last sort of follow-up, what does it all mean video, but this is the last of the data management assignments, and the last, and it's the hardest with respect, there's a lot of code to look at, but not really any code for you to write, except could you see how I did the database parts and mimic it and do the database on your own, which for some of you would be quite hard, but I'll give you a hint. Just go back to any of the other things I've done and look at where I put together writing to the database. This is a good example. So this is the type of code you're wanting to mimic and steal. All right, that'll do it. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.